Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Hey, it's great to see Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. We're going to get into some hot topics involving potentially Kansas sports and, still trying to lure the Chiefs away. Maybe sports betting has something to do with that. Stay tuned for that story. But first, let's bring Pat in to talk about the latest in Canada. And our focus, Pat, as we begin, is more of a regulated gambling market in Ontario. So thank you again for coming on the show, and would love the breakdown as to what this could potentially look like.
Yeah. Hey, Craig, thanks for having me. I missed you last week because I was in Canada kind of catching up on the market because, down here in the States, we kind of sometimes forget about our neighbor up north, but there's a lot going on. I went up to the Canadian Gaming Summit in Toronto, and yeah, the talk of the town was Alberta. Right now, in 2021, Canada, they changed the criminal code to allow for single event wagering. That kind of opened up the market. But for the most part, it's just lottery sports books run by provincial lotteries. Of course, that changed in Ontario in early 2022, where they opened up the market. There was a couple panels where they kind of patted themselves on the back for creating this giant market. I think they have something like 51 operators. They've done $2.4 billion in sports betting revenue in year 2. So they were celebrating that. But again, the talk of the conference was Alberta. And it sounds like, actually, it's confirmed, Dale Nally, the Minister of Red Tape Reduction, which is a great name. I think the U.S. needs to work on the regulatory names. The Minister of Red Tape Reduction, he confirmed that Alberta will be copying, for the most part, the framework that Ontario put into place to have an open market. He said, we're going to massage it a little bit. He unlike Ontario, they're having lots of conversations with the First Nations in the province, and they're also talking with the brick and mortar casinos, because I think they have almost 40, and Ontario didn't include that in the framework right from the get-go. They want retail sports books. They want the really solid land-based industry to be part of the online industry right away, and so it's coming to Alberta. That's kind of big news in Canada. I mean, of course, the Oilers couldn't get it done in Game 7, but you imagine the betting that would have gone on up there. I think, Nally told us that Albertans love to gamble, which I think is kind of funny. But he said during the Stanley Cup Finals, the 50-50 raffles at the Oilers games got up to $16 million, meaning the winner took home $8 million. That's insane. Coming from a guy who went to a lot of Vegas Golden Knights games when I lived in Vegas, they never got that high, even in Vegas. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting market to watch and to kind of come into its own. Who knows when that will be? There's some talk that it could potentially be by the end of this year, but I would put my money on early next year. We'll see what happens, but you can expect pretty similar kind of rollout from operators that we've seen in Ontario, which is most of the operators down here, and even some more international operators. So Alberta's coming. And so any Canadians that watch you can kind of be happy if they live in Alberta.
Yeah, and good job getting up there so you can give us this information as well. Okay, so you've been talking about this, and, basically we have been reporting this through you guys at Legal Sports Report. I should say you guys are reporting it, and we're echoing it, that Kansas is really interested in the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're interested in the Royals as well. We know that both are looking kind of to upgrade their stadiums or get new stadiums as well. I mean, with the success the Chiefs have had, it is just hard for me to believe that, financially speaking, that through some sort of form of revenue from sports wagering, that they could get them to move over to Kansas. But that is the story here, and it continues. There's still, smoke here. Does it ever become fire?
I'm not sure if it ever becomes fire, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely lots of smoke. And to your point, the Chiefs and Royals have their side-by-side stadiums there in Kansas City. Their lease is until 2031, but they're already thinking about projects. The Chiefs want to renovate Arrowhead. The Royals want to move to downtown Kansas City, which is in Missouri. And the voters and the officials in the state have not done a whole lot to give them confidence. In fact, voters in Kansas City voted against sending more tax dollars to helping fund anything right now. And so that's left the Chiefs and Royals saying, hey, maybe we can look to go elsewhere, maybe even across the border. And they have said they will entertain options from the Kansas side of Kansas City. Now, what recently happened, we'll go back to when sports betting went into law first, is they earmarked 80% of sports betting revenue to an attraction fund to attract teams, most notably these two. Well, this week or last week, I can't remember which day exactly, Governor Laura Kelly signed a bill in place that will allow, that kind of changes a bond structure to allow for 70% of it to fund a stadium project or stadium projects. And that is in part funded by sports betting revenue. It would also come in from lotteries and any tax revenue generated from, entertainment districts around said stadiums. And so that just gives them a little bit of playing room to say, hey, we can help you move over here. Well, Missouri is not doing anything. Of course, the Kansas City, Missouri mayor has come out and said, whoa, we're going to do something. We'll get an offer on the table. I think the Royals and Chiefs have a lot of leverage. I don't think they're going to be quick on making a deal with anybody. I think they're going to see who comes in with the best deal and go from there. But sure enough, Kansas, right as they wanted to from the get-go, going to try to use sports betting revenue to attract a team to the Kansas side.
And look, I like the effort. We've been talking about it for a while. Maybe some progress is made. Meanwhile, is there any progress made in Missouri? I know that they're trying to get sports betting on the ballot in November. Pat, what's the latest there?
Yeah, so, we talked before, the Winning for Missouri Education Coalition has turned in more than 340,000 signatures for the ballot. That's good. I mean, they need to have verified 170 or about their signatures. The Secretary of State is going through those right as we speak, and we'll know fairly soon whether or not sports betting as an issue will be on the ballot in November. Well, there's been polls throughout this whole process. As you know, we've seen no movement on the Senate side of the legislature in Missouri. The House has put through several packages over the past couple of years, the same one that voters could vote on. And they just have not, the Senate just is not moving it. It failed again this year for the third straight year, even though, a couple of years ago, Kansas and them were racing to get it off the ground. And so, through the whole time, you would expect there'd be, ravenous, voters expecting to get to vote on this. But according to the most recent poll that came out this week, it's pretty much split right around 35% for and against. Then you've got the middle undecided amount. We've had almost 50% in some polls. So you might guess those undecided registered voters might lean toward yes. But it's going to be close, I think, when it comes down into November. I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming majority to say we want this, but it's going to be close. And that's what I'm going to be watching on Election Day versus some of the other, things to be paying attention to, including the presidential election. So, Missouri voters will likely get to vote. It's going to be close, though.
All right. Well, at least we have something to look forward to as far as, getting sports, betting going on a ballot somewhere. I guess Missouri ends up being at least the one state in November. All right. Fair enough, Pat. Great stuff. As always, welcome back, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
Thanks as always, Craig.